Yo, what's up, all you gardeners out there? This is Mr. Weedman and Big Earl with the Weedman 420 Chronicles Grow Hour. How are all you gardeners out there? Big Earl, brother, how you doing?
I'm doing well, man. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. You know why? Because few things. We're gonna talk growing weed and we're gonna smoke some weed, and
Yeah,
I'm super stoked, man. Looking forward to it. How was your Labor Day weekend, my friend? How did everything go?
that was good. I went home, saw the parents, got to visit the hemp farm, all that fun stuff. How about yours?
That hemp farm
Yeah,
is ripping, baby,
good.
ripping. The pictures that we posted on We Met 420 Chronicles Instagram, dude, those plants are looking fantastic. How many plants you got growing?
Probably close to 100. But man, dude, they are unruly. We're gonna go 2 seasons next year. So,
We'll post some more pictures, everybody. Big Earl always sends me pictures for Show Your Grow Fridays. So, and I posted some on Friday. Man, he had that long train of beautiful looking hemp flowers that were just looking purdy. And I cannot wait to see the final stages of those buds and those plants once you all cut them down soon. When is what is it, Croptober? Is that when you're going to be
yeah,
harvesting them when they're ready?
it'll probably be closer to the end. We'll see how they do whenever I can get there. Really.
Gotcha. How is growing hemp versus cannabis? Is there any kind of difference to that or anything? I know you're not down at that farm all the time and it's your parents' farm and stuff, and they take care of it. But how is it like the difference growing that big, huge outdoor garden, 100 plants, and the craziness? Didn't you tell me you had a bird's nest in one of the plants or something? We were talking yesterday.
Yeah, well, they're like 15 foot tall. So it's like I got in there and right at the base, like how a bird would be at the base of a tree. It's like, oh, there's a bird's nest in here. I told the parents, but it's the biggest difference is we're 100% organic, and I because we're outside, it's so easy. In my indoor stuff, I run organic, but I substitute with salts. So that's probably the biggest thing there. You got to be, week 1 or 2, you got to add your PK booster. You don't add it right when you need it, stuff like that. You got to kind of predict some of that stuff. But it's doing pretty good, man. It's all a mix that we made together. We stole
I,
some
I,
mixes.
I I'm looking to see the final when that's all done, the harvest. And I know 100 plants, boy, woo, that's a lot of harvesting right there. And excited to see the green, excited to see the growth. It's awesome that you're helping out your parents down there, and it looks fine, mighty fine. So, what are we smoking, man? I know what I'm smoking. What are you smoking today?
Today I packed up the last the apple fritter. My little
Ooh, I've had apple fritter, not your apple fritter, but I've had apple fritter before.
yeah.
And I'm smoking some modified grape, not home grow, part of the High Times Cannabis Cup that we just finished up on the 4th of September. So this modified grape, it's been pretty good. It's by Verano. It's a local MSO cultivator here, but like I said, it was part of the High Times Cannabis Cup. It's decent. It's not bad. Got a decent flavor. Got a decent high. The one thing I've learned about dispensary cannabis is the high does not last very long. Not Illinois weed. It's good. Some of it's good. Some of it's decent, and some of it's meh. But the high is not there compared to smoking home grow and caregiver grow. And I'm telling you what, the high that I got from the weed that you gave me back when I went and visited you, the high that I get off my weed is so different compared to the high from dispensary weed. And I don't smoke any different. I smoke out of an 8 decades steamroller, or I smoke out of a joint, or I smoke out of a bong rip. But yeah, it's different, man. And I hadn't smoked dispensary weed in some time. And this High Times Cannabis Cup Challenge really taught me the difference between good home grow versus decent dispensary grow.
Yeah.
I will never knock any cultivator unless you're selling shit, and I'm going to give it to you. But I know the grow that we get to do and care for and love and tenderness, and we're not fat. We're not pushing it out fast. We're not adding a bunch of stuff to it to get bigger buds and whatever, to get the yield, to get the weight. It's all about the weight when it comes to cultivation in Illinois here. You get that weight, you get that profit. I don't care about the weight. I care about the trichomes, and I care about the terpenes, and I care about the cannabinoids, and I care about the smell, and I care about how that plant is growing in my tents. And we're going to talk about today what you do to need to grow in these tents. This is our first episode. The first episode we did was our introduction episode. This is our first episode. We're getting some meat and potatoes. We're gonna give you the meat, and we're gonna give you, for you vegans out there, we're gonna give you the vegetables, okay? And for your vegetarians, we're gonna give you the eggs with the vegetables. For you meat lovers, meat and potatoes. I gotta think of everybody. You know, I can't just think of meat. I like meat, but there's other people out there in the world that don't like meat. So we're gonna give it to you all. Right, Big Earl? We're gonna
Yeah.
give it to them all today. I'm excited. I'm excited about this episode because this is gonna be the continuation of more episodes to come. This is just the basics of what you're gonna need to do your grow, whether it be a small little one tenner or maybe even a little bit of a craft grow, maybe even a little bit of a caregiver grow. But if you're growing like a 10 by 10 tent, whatever, we're gonna give you some basics and then deeper in depth as we go along through these series of growing, the grow hour, and we're gonna get baked. So let's get baked.
Yeah.
I didn't get baked yet, so I've been talking.
I'm always down to get baked again. I found this little bong. I was real excited to bring it out, but the apple fritter is I'm just finishing it up. It's from a buddy, but it's they call it Lumpy's cut. He's a pheno hunter. Um, but I was real excited to get it from him. It's really nice.
Nice, nice. And how many seeds did you plant on that first one when you did it? Look at that little bong. That's a cute little bong. I like it.
I think the pot is
Yeah, that's a nice little bubbler bong right there. I love it.
little 14 mil takes care of so this one I didn't actually hunt. This was a from a buddy, and it's from a dude they call Lumpy. I think he's from here in Michigan. I don't honestly know a ton about all that, but I know that people say he is. He's a real good hunter, so I was excited to get a hold of it.
Sweet.
I don't know if
So,
I'll run it again, but I might cross it.
gotcha. So let's get started here. So here's the episode title. What do you need to grow? We're going to talk about space. We're going to talk a little bit some other things. We're going to talk predetermine what you're going to need to start your home grow, or even if you've already started, but you need some more advice because you need more room, or you want more equipment, or you want better equipment because you started off, or maybe you don't have the funds to do any equipment, and you just have a funds to do it, buy a light and some medium and a pot and some seeds. We got you covered. Okay, but Big Earl wanted to talk about something that he was trying to explain on the last episode. So, Big Earl, tell him a little bit about what you wanted, the expert realm thing that you were telling me about when we talked last. So, tell everybody what you were saying.
So I cringed a little bit. I used the word expert, and I didn't like that at all. And so I was explaining to you. I said, "Man, I need to explain that somehow." I use that word in comparison to professional. I only mean professional by ways of getting paid to do it. Um, there's a lot of professionals out there, so I by no mean would consider myself an expert at really anything. Um, but I just wanted to clear that up for everybody. You know, I do my thing with cannabis, but the expert realm was just saying I would consider myself a professional in it.
Yeah, and we've said this on the show from the beginning. We're not experts. We're learning just like to help everybody else learn. And the more we learn, we get better. The more we help others learn, they get better. And that's what we're trying to do. Just get better each and every day at cannabis, whether it's just learning about the plant, learning how to grow, learning how to smoke, learning what terpenes are, whatever. We're not experts. I mean, I went to school for cannabis, and but I'm still not an expert. The more I learn, the day I stop learning is the day I'll probably they bury me. So always willing to learn. And you know, I mean, one day maybe I'll become a little bit of a spurt. Maybe
Yeah.
not expert, but a
Yeah.
spurt.
So
you know,
when you're
you
looking back at
feel me? So let's get into the meat and potatoes, everybody. Here's the first one: time. And I wish I had more of it. As I hit 50, time I see now starting fading faster. So think about time. And Big Earl's going to talk to you a little bit about the time it's going to take and everything right now. Big Earl, lay it down for him.
Sure. So gardening, especially cannabis, probably anything, is a really great um, what you put into it is what you get out of it kind of scenario. It's a really great. It just shows that really great. So you really need, I would say, and you've talked about before, a few hours a week at least, even if you just have one or two plants. There's always the exception. You can always do an auto flower, throw it in a pot, throw it on your deck, throw it out wherever you need to throw it, let nature do its thing, and you can probably get some okay cannabis if you use good genetics.
And
Um,
you've said that to me before too. Like you've said in you said even if you threw it on your balcony in your condo and you put you're gonna get something.
sure.
You've
That's better
said
than
it.
nothing, right? That's
Yeah. If you get an
right.
ounce, a couple big nugs, I'd be happy. First time on your balcony, hell yeah.
Yeah, it's really easy to grow weed. It's really hard to grow it really well. And so but you could have that exception. You might have a great south-facing balcony. It might get a great airflow. It might have everything you'd ever want. You might be able to find somebody who makes some feminized autoflower seeds, and you might just be able to pop a seed out there every 70 days, and every 70 days yield out a few ounces. And if you're not a super heavy smoker, that's getting you through it.
Yeah, and if you put it in like a 5 gallon or a 7 gallon pot, that thing is gonna look good on your balcony.
Exactly. Some water only soil, a nice big pot, and good to go. But um, in my experience, though, if you don't put that love in, you usually grow mids. So taking care of it.
No headies or toppers for anybody if you don't show love.
Yeah, don't grow mids. But when you put it on that deck, it's not just set it and forget it. You still want to go out and take some leaves off of it. You still want to shape it up. Um, it still needs a little bit of love, but it's just not as intensive as everybody might think. But if you want to do this, like how you see us do it, how you do it, how I do it, inside lights, you got a watering system, you got everything else. You need to be prepared to put some time aside for this. And if you don't have that time, if you're not willing to give that time up for this hobby, it might be something where you just consider a caregiver, a different home grower, whatever. If you're lucky enough to have a dispensary that you like around you, however it is, you might just want to consider something else or an auto flower in a pot and just see what happens.
Yeah, auto flowering seeds are pretty abundant out there too. Just make sure you're going to a legit site, and if you have any questions, you can always ask Big Earl or Mr. Weedman. Money. Let's talk money. I've talked about my grow setup and how much it cost me to set mine up. But this is before you and I knew each other. I had my tent already going when you and I first met. It cost me roughly around $1,200, but I made that back basically by the end of the first grow. And so that way you got to look at, I didn't have to spend money. I got that grow, but it took some time. It took 120 days by the time I was able to really smoke that first hit, but I made that money back. That was my experience. Don't forget, there's also electric. There's also, there's bills that come with that on top of that. A little bit of electric, not much, a little bit of power you got to use, of course, and you got to spend some money on new soil every time if you don't compost and stuff like that. But I buy new soil almost every time, where I buy enough to last me 2 or 3 grows. So there is some expense that comes with it after you set yourself up. Also, don't forget that. Not that much, but now I'm on my 5th grow, fifth or sixth. I'm on my 6th, 7th grow right now. This is my 7th, I think,
Nice.
and the Majin Fujita grow I did, I got 9.5 ounces. That's a lot of money. So I mean, if you look at that, I count that as, let's just say, 250 a pound at 9 ounces. Let's just say I made some big money if I was to sell it. But that's how much I saved on weed, and I gave a lot of that away too. Don't get me wrong, to people. Plus, I pushed some to edibles. So, but 9.5 ounces of smokable weed. Let's not forget that. That's not all the trim and all the lower mids and everything else I pushed to edibles. That was smokable. I still got some of that too. I still got, I think, like 2 ounces left. All the big fat. Well, I posted one today too, a big fat one too. So tell me about money.
Yeah, and you got to dry that yourself. You get to smoke it throughout time and really see where you like the profiles of it. You get it's the range that you can choose seeds is huge compared to your local dispensary or whatever's around you. But yeah, so how I see it really is time equals money here when you're talking about growing, in the sense that the more money you want to put at this, the more time you can save. So if you go in and you get timers, you get inline fans, you get humidifiers, dehumidifiers, you throw the works at this. You won't have to know your garden. You won't have to open up the door at this time, or unzip the tent at this time. You won't have to go down there and do this or that. Make your watering go off, or hand water, hand mix, because you have timers, you have machines, pumps, stuff like that doing it for you. So, you can get by with this, like we've said before, pretty cheaply. It's really like what you want to spend. You want to spend money on a tent? Cool. Now you can grow regular photo period flowers. You don't have to rely on auto flowers and so wherever, or one season a year outside. Um, you want to get an inline. You want to get the lights. Awesome. I definitely love that. I suggest it. But if you don't want to spend that, if you are just trying to get some, you can't afford the medicine, you're just wanting to look into this, you can do this, for pretty cheap. Just it take a little bit more time to get that good outcome, but it's definitely doable. I've seen great gardens that just didn't have a ton of money put into it, but somebody went around and watered a couple times a day. They had garbage cans on wheels that they literally took around with bubblers multiple times a day and pumps in them. Whereas other people, they have a line running that on a timer. It starts, it stops. They change the reservoir once a week.
I don't have any of that. I just have a flower pot and a watering pot with my jugs of water that I set the pH at, and they're ready to go.
Sure.
And then if I add, I'm not adding any nutrients right now because it's all organic. Um, so I don't have to worry about any really big mixtures. I have that I went all organic, like I said on a prior episode. And I used the liquid squid to as a nutrient. So I mean, it's all organic, and I add like a tablespoon to a gallon of water. So that's it. That's it. So I mean, I have my little watering pot and just water each of them because I only got two. Maybe one day I'll buy the thing that covers the whole thing and it spreads the water out evenly.
Sure.
If you don't have the money or the know-how either, you go the old-fashioned way. Just water it with a little pot.
Absolutely. I mean, it works,
It
But
works
yeah,
for me.
you do what you got to do on that. But it's definitely, it's something you can for sure build up, and you can do it your way. Everybody's garden's a little different.
Yeah, yeah. So the legality of it all. We talked yesterday before the show. We went over the show yesterday, you and I, and just to go over our notes and stuff what we were going to talk about, and we changed a little thing on the legality. And we first off, I just want to say, and I know Big Earl's going to follow with me. Fuck the DEA, fuck the politicians when it comes to legalizing cannabis, and fuck falling for their shit every time. I mean, I read an article today about that dude from Pennsylvania talking to Biden, and it still didn't even like get Biden and go, yeah, maybe we'll do it. No, it was on marijuana moment, man. I read that. I was so pissed. I'm like, yo, dude, I know what you're trying to do. I appreciate you in Pennsylvania there. I can't remember his name. But he had a conversation with Biden over Labor Day weekend about decriminalizing cannabis, and Biden just kind of like said, yeah, we're thinking about it. It's just like, man, fuck you
Wow.
all.
It- It's it's hard to believe. It's like one of those things where it's like, how can this even? You have something that's killed literally zero people directly, at least. Zero. Big fat zero. How many
Goose
people
egg.
have misdosed? No, people haven't been educated until recently. Still, people aren't very educated. Taking thousands of grams of milligrams of this sometimes. Zero. And then you look at some of this other stuff they're making money on, killing over half a million people in our country alone. When you take like the alcohol, the prescription pills, all the tobacco, all that garbage, dude, it's hard to even get into. It's all,
Yep.
we don't like to hate. We're all about love with everybody, but all that just is like, it's awful. But as awful as it is, sometimes the legality can really help you because you're sitting here saying, okay, I don't know how much I want to grow. I don't know how many plants I want to grow. Well, if you're in Illinois, you can get your med card and grow 5.
5.
Michigan, without a med card, you can grow 12, just being over 21. So if
I
you're,
love you, Michigan. I
yeah,
love you. So
yes.
jealous.
So and over 18 if you get a med card. So here, if you're saying, well, I'm not interested in being a caregiver. I can have 12 plants. Well, now you don't want a 10 by 10 tent just to flower because if you're going to split that into a veg and do all that stuff, maybe that's what you want. But you don't need this big giant area. Or if you want to be a caregiver, then okay, I'm going to possibly have 72 plants on my license. Do I have an area to fill this in? No. Well, maybe I'm just get my 12 plants, or maybe I just get one patient, like my 24 plants. Um, either way, though, it can kind of help you shape your area. It can help you get started. You say, okay, I have some time. I have this little bit of extra money. Well, I could get a 10 by 10. Do I need it? Follow the laws. Don't let them get you. If you can. That'd be my
Yeah, I mean, if I can grow 12 plants, I'd have six in flower and six in veg at all times, and just turning and burning.
oh dude.
Two different tents. Now I'd probably even have one of those tents that have the cloning tents on the side too. I would definitely do something like that if I could do. If I had the room, I would probably even do it with five plants. Three in veg, and two in flower at all times. If I had the room for tents like that, and then have a little cloning tent, because I missed out. The grow I'm growing right now, I only got one seed of each: the watermelon punch and the banana sherbet. And I only got one seed of each feminized. And I'm going to talk about feminized seeds in a minute here. Um, and I don't have anywhere to clone. And I was when I took some clippings, but had nowhere to put them, so they wind up just falling apart on me. Because I wind up changing. Every time I've tried to clone, it's been a disaster because I only got one tent and it doesn't work. I need a little separate little thing. I actually don't even have the room to put like the little dome over it. It's been misery for me. I
Yeah.
need another tent. So, but if you can learn to clone, and have that little cloning tent, man, you're never stopping your grow. Never.
Right.
Especially if you could do five plants and you just keep on. I have to fully reset after, after the drying is done. And I have to redo the whole thing all over again. I have to restart from seed and go, and I don't do autoflower, you know, so I'd start all the time from the beginning. If I had clones going, they would just be banging, boom, boom,
Yeah.
boom, boom. I mean, I'd be turning and burning even quicker. So don't don't panic. But this is things we're going to teach you along the way. So go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh
I'm
no,
big
that's
now.
you'd be running your ABCs, right? Always be cloning.
Always be cloning, dog. Always be cloning.
Cloning is something that actually we had a fan question about it. It's something that's very particular, but once you get it down and you're like, okay, this is how you got to do it. It's not so bad. But I definitely do my down at that hemp farm. My parents have been feeling it with the cloning, and so they want to do all just seeds now because of it. I'm like, just stay with it. I'm going to teach you this. You just got to do it. But we'll see how it goes. But so back if we go back to legality, I even, which is kind of crazy, I moved 7 hours up here to be legal. So just remember, I know that I already said this, but I people going to jail for cannabis is the worst shit in the world.
Brutal.
So just do what you can to stay on the right side of that, and that way you can sleep good at night. You don't have to worry about shit. If you can't do it,
Just be safe if you are going to do it.
but
Just
yeah,
keep it small. Don't try to overwhelm it.
yeah, and
Start slow and go low,
yeah,
you know?
perfect.
Or start low and go slow. Something like that. Somebody said that once on an episode. I think it was me. Let's I've talked about space a lot with my little grow, the little 2x4x5 tent. It was a 2x4x4 tent, but I got the extenders, a 2x4x5. And that's still not tall enough. The grow I got going on right now, these things, we talked yesterday, these two just, when I put them to flower, the first week in flower, they grew about another 2-3 inches. And they're now about 2 inches, 3 inches away from the light. And I got no more room to go up on the light. So now I got to start bending, which I did. I bent them a little bit, and then they shot straight back up. I got these little orange clips that you bend them a little bit, and then they go back. They curve a little bit, go up, and give you save me like a half an inch. But now I'm gonna have to tie them back a little bit. I'm gonna have to tie them back and move shit around because they just, man, just took a growth spurt like it was nothing. They're gonna be pretty. I mean, they got the little sprouts already starting to come up in the center. I was looking at them earlier after I got done watering them. They're looking sweet. So, but as I'm saying, space, and not even just the height of your tent, the space in the room too. I only had a little area in my laundry room, and not always the best place because you got the laundry going sometimes, and that draws heat, which you don't need from the dryer. But it's in a little corner. I think I've posted plenty of pictures of it, but it is tight in that room. I got really no room to work. I got the sink right here. I got I do all my work on my dryer. I have a big towel mat on my dryer, and I do all my mixing and shaking and grooving there. And I got the big sink there. So if I can grow in this little fucking space, most anybody can grow anywhere. I mean, people who have come to my house and seen my little girl, like, damn man, you got the. I'm like, yeah, because it's what I got. I worked with what I got, and that's what I'm trying to tell everybody. There's places you can make space if you need it. You can even grow, and Big Earl and I have talked about this. You grew in your closet. You can grow in your closet. You can grow even if you don't have a closet. You could grow out in an open little space. You might not get what you're looking for, but you're gonna get something that you have the light on over it and stuff like that. You're not gonna be able to control the air and the humidity and stuff, but you're gonna get something. So the space is an option, but it's also not an option because I know I don't have a lot of it and I make it work. So, Big Earl, let's talk a little bit about space,
Yeah, and
the final frontier.
more to the space than just the square footage too is like how much power do you have available to the space? How is how are the temperatures in your space? You know, if you have an area that's like by your laundry, and let's say your laundry makes the room real warm or something, like that's something you need to take into consideration. Um, at least something you need to say, okay, maybe we get an extra fan, maybe we do something that somebody else who doesn't have that problem wouldn't have to do. Um,
I've sometimes dropped the air condition down one more temp. Because I usually keep my house at 74 in the summer, and that actually keeps a good regulation in my tent too. But sometimes it gets a little hot in the house, even at 74, or someone turns the dryer on. I got to crank that down one temp below, and it brings it back down to 77 degrees, where I like to keep my temperature. It's tough, and it's tough to keep humidity too. I mean, I have a humidifier too, so this is big, man. Space isn't trying to work in and out. Sometimes you got people coming in and out of the laundry room too. You're like, get the hell out of my workspace. I'm trying to work over here.
yeah, yeah, no, 100%. And you, so those are things to think about. You know, say you're starting to grow, and you've been listening, and you need to think about what space you actually have to work with. So it's just is what it is at that point. And there's a big difference between being able to run extra electricity to a 10 by 10 area and having one 120 plug to a 2 by 4 area that's only 15 amps. So check out your space. If you're thinking about putting it somewhere, make sure you have some extra power to that area. Make sure you know what breakers are there. Make sure that if it is in a drier area or something like that, make sure it's not sharing some kind of power outlet with something else or some kind. Just go through all that because that's something you don't want to be wrong about. And make sure that you're good to go with to make your best options. Make sure you've got this corner here with a little bit more power than this corner or a different breaker. Maybe you go over to that corner. So,
I don't even have that. I mean, I run mine on a board, so if power ever goes out, it doesn't screw up all my stuff. So I have like where it's plugged into a power
oh,
jack, So if something happens, because you could screw up your LEDs, which I had happen. We had a power outage in the whole block, and it screwed up one of my LEDs because I didn't have it on a little breaker. So sucks. But I mean, I only have mine plugged in right into the wall, into the plug, and then it goes into the motherboard, and that's it. That's how I run it. But I don't have huge power in those lights. I mean, the watts are I think like 200 on one of them and 400 on the other one, so or something like that. So it's not a ton. So it's able to run. I'm able to do it in this house. But I'm trying to get out, people. If I can do it, you can do it. I'm trying to get at. No excuses. Oh shit, I'm baked. Good. I'm baked.
yeah. Did
Are we
did
gonna go? I got some rookie mistakes here. I wrote down for
oh
people
yeah.
though. If so, went and did some research on some websites and stuff. Just some rookie mistakes people could make possibly in the beginning. Here's one of them. And Big Earl saved me a few times on buying, but you can get the bag seed of doom. Boom, boom, boom. Where you have somebody that gave you a bag of seeds, or you buy a bag of weed and there's a bunch of seeds in it. Man, try not to take unless you know what the sources are and where the seed is and what's the genetics and stuff like that. A lot of times you're going to get you're gonna get just a bag of males.
Or
So,
they're gonna pretend to be ladies, and then they're gonna show you some male tendencies, and that's even worse.
yeah, well, you herm a little bit, right? So, and I'll talk about, seeds later on in this episode, so I'm not gonna go too much, but just make sure you know where you're getting your seeds from and buying legit. And Big Earl is one of the best references. I mean, he's told me a bunch of good places. I got a bunch now that I use. Uh, just trust me. We'll talk. We'll go over seed hunting a bunch of times. So, and probably have some people on who are pheno hunters or people that own seed banks and stuff. So, trust is a big one. Uh, here's my first grow. This was a big one for me because I didn't know much about pH and nutrients, and I didn't know you had to keep your water at a certain pH and test your soil by running water through your soil and catching it and testing it that way too. There was things I did not know my first time. I like I said, I got 3 ounces. The weed was good. I just didn't really know until I learned from Big Earl. He goes, you got to get this pH thing, and you got to test your water before you water, and you got to, I didn't even know about pH up and down on that first grow. I just threw. I mean, I watched some videos on how to, germinate and how to do this and how to do that. I did that all correctly, but I didn't know. So my pH in my water here is normally around like 7.8 to 8.2, and that's what I was feeding those plants that first grow. I didn't. That's high. I usually now keep mine about between, depends on what stage of the grow I'm in, but anywhere between like 6.4 to 6.8 is where normally now my water is at when I'm watering. And that, once I learned that, a whole new world opened up. And a whole new world opened up about properly dosing your plants with newts and nutrients. That was a big thing for me too. I didn't know much. I did a lot of reading on nutrients, and I did a lot of reading on don't over nute your plants. You burn them. Also, when you're buying soil, a lot of soils run already hot with nutrients. So if you're running just straight soil and not putting any cocoa in there and stuff like that, which we'll talk about, but if you're just doing straight soil, a lot of soils run hot. You don't need to add nutrients for like a good 4 to 5 weeks, 6 weeks on some of them. I learned that the hard way too on the second grow. I burnt some shit up. So, not everything was great. Understanding light for the tent size you're going to get is a big one. Are you going to use, an LED? Are you going to use the big 3,000 watt bulbs? And it depends. You're going to use HIDs and stuff like that. So it just depends. I like a good little LED setup. They're cheap. They work really well. And you don't burn anything. You just get the ones you're looking for. So, and biggest one that I see so many people making mistakes on pictures that this is a big one. This is hard though. Over and under watering. That's like the killer. That's like death. Because most people don't understand. Get yourself a barometer or just do the old knuckle trick. Put it down into the knuckle if it's bone dry and needs water. And also your plant will tell you too. Trust me, your plant will let you know. When you got drooping leaves, most of the time it needs a little water. So, but over underwater, man, that's a killer. Another one too, having proper ventilation, having a fan running in there, and having like the little vents open up and stuff. Like sometimes, like I said, I have to open up my front too. Get some more airflow in there. Just knowing that, and your plants will let you know. Uh, the lack of care with the ventilation is a big one, And then some people harvest too soon. That's a big one too. Know when to harvest. Know when, and how you know is you gotta get yourself a little jeweler's loop, a little loopy loop,
Sure.
and especially if it's your first few grows, and you gotta look at those trichomes, and you gotta look for that color. You want that creaminess. You want that, just like, you don't want it amber. That means you got a little CBN going in there. It's a little it's not bad, but you let it go a little too long, and you don't want it clear, right? It's too early. You want it a little like hazy, let's just say, right? That correct?
Yeah, when you're harvesting for optimal THC, I believe that is how they would say, which is what most people do. Some plants will change, not necessarily they get more or less of anything, but when you take them a little early or late, they can change some different things in there. And so I'll never forget the first time I ran a Death Star plant. I was told, "Oh, you ever smoked Death Star? Yeah, I think I have." Well, yeah, I don't think you. Have you ever smoked real Death Star? It's got to go 16 weeks. I was like, holy cow. But I ran it 16 weeks, and he loved it. I couldn't tell a huge difference, but just to but yes, the rule of thumb is you wait to see some of that amber, and that's when your trikes are just starting to mature. And some people like to see 20. Some people like to see a little bit more than that percent. And then by the time you get it down and harvest it and everything, you're usually looking at optimal THC retention.
Yeah, and don't harvest too soon. Just use that jeweler's loop and look online. There's always ways. And we'll talk about harvesting too in the future. But yeah, harvesting was a big one. I didn't know in the beginning. I don't know. I really you get there's a certain time. I just thought like when the buds, the hairs were totally red. Sometimes you got some buds that the hairs don't turn red. I didn't know that.
Sure.
So you know, that's when I harvested. I said, "Oh, the hairs are red. Great." I was going to harvest it. I still got baked. The weed was great, but I didn't know. That's just that first growth thinking I can do this. And I learned and I read and I learned and I read and I learned and I read. And now I'm getting better at this craft because I love it. Genetics. This is a big one. This
Yeah.
one is big. This one, besides lights, I think is like the biggest. Good genetics. One, good genetics are hard to find. Good genetics. There's a lot of genetics out there. Good genetics is the key to growing a successful plant. Now, I'm going to go into just this in a minute. You have that photo period and autoflower, and Big Earl is going to go through the two of them. I don't do autoflower, and everyone keeps on asking me, you should. You got a little tent, and you only put two plants, and you turn and burn. I know, but I like the whole experience of it all. That's why I haven't used auto. Now, our tech, just got his first tent, and he's doing auto, and his plant's looking pretty good. It's going pretty quick. And he said it's starting to get a little smelly. And I'm like, good. But he wants to turn and burn. I said, dude, and I gave him a couple of websites to go on for auto flowers, and I said, do not, you want to turn and burn, do not get anyone that has an R next to it. He goes, what do you mean? I said, just it means regs, it's regulars. I didn't know this in the beginning when I first started growing, what an F meant, what an R meant. I screwed up. Get an autoflower that has an F, that means feminized, so you don't have to distrust knowing what's coming and what's not coming during your grow. You just get feminized right away, so you don't have to think about, is this going to be a male or female plant. Now, there's nothing wrong with buying regs. There's a lot, but it's a crapshoot sometimes. You might only get, out of the 10 you buy, 5 might be male, 5 might be female. And then sometimes you got to wait 6 weeks before you could tell a sex. Sometimes 4 weeks, but it might take the next thing you got a two, maybe you only got one plant going on in a tent at a time. That's all you could do. Now that turned into a male, you're down 4, 5, 6 weeks. Now you got to start over. So I don't know if the cannabis world cares if it's regs or feminized. I don't know if people get pissed that people are saying they're only selling feminized or not. I don't know. All I know is for me moving forward right now, until I can have a bigger grow area and not have to and not care if I get a male, and save that pollen and send it over to Big Earl so he could do some wicked witch stuff with it and be great and poof it up. But
Love
for
to.
me, I'm moving straight feminized seeds moving forward for now. And I have some that are regs, and Big Earl sends me stuff too. And like I said, I love it because I'll grow that, and I don't mind getting a male because it's just good stuff. Because I get him for free from Big Earl, and he loves me, and I love him back, and it's great. And I get to do some testing for him, which is fun. But just remember, if you're short on time and you're short on growing, and you don't want to take the crapshoot, make sure you get feminized seeds. And I'll let Big Earl talk more on genetics and stuff. But that's just my opinion. So go ahead, take it away.
Yeah, I think that would be most people's opinion. I personally, so I think feminized seeds have come a long way. We kind of understand them a little bit more. You make feminized seeds technically with a hermed female, but it's one that is stable, that you choose to herm yourself. So that's much different than a female that hermed or got stressed on her own to show male traits and release pollen, because she's stable, unlike the second mentioned, which is not stable. Um, but I think I'm one of the few that likes regular seeds more than feminized. I've always found them to be a little bit more stable, and I get caught more with like a plant that starts releasing pollen week like 3 and 4 that already showed male. That scares me more than knowing something might be of male and being like, okay, I got a 50-50 shot at all of this. Um, after my last hunt, I'd have to say maybe I got about a 30% female to 70% male. Um, that wasn't very fun. Um, but I still stand by my I still stand by my I like regs just because I've found they don't trick me as much. But I totally get, if you don't have the area to search regs, I have a small basement and I have the ability to have a decent sized license compared to most home grows. So I have, quite a bit. Like I can mess around with some little plants and not get over my number. But yeah, when we get into genetics, so there's photo period versus autoflower. The autoflower is going to flower no matter what, just based on time. Some are 70 days, some are 100 days. That means that from seeing green to those flowers being done, completely hung up to dry, 70 to 100 days, depending on the variety, which is like that with regular cannabis in just their flowering period. So you go through popping the seed, vegging it, then you throw it into flower, which is a 12-12 cycle on a regular photo period. Um, and you still have that. I like to run mine at least 70 days. You still have that 70 days. And that's where I think I'm going to use autoflowers most. I'm doing some autoflower crosses now. I think I'm going to use them the most. I'm going to hunt seeds, and then when I have these gaps from a larger male population than I like, I'm going to throw autoflowers in there because I run my flowering period 70 days anyway. Some of these autoflowers are 70 days from seed. So they'll literally be getting done at the same time. I can just pop them in there with those. And as long as they're stable, right now, from what I'm seeing on my very first autoflower run, they're pretty awesome. Uh,
Nice.
I'm assuming the breeder has a lot to do with that, just like with everything, but they're pretty nice. Knowing the difference between landrace the different like indicas, which would be like a smaller tent variety, what I would consider that, and a landrace, which would be like a sativa, or even a sativa that's not a landrace. Those are going to generally stretch a little bit more. So if you're in a smaller tent, you might really want to grow train wreck, but it stretches a little bit, and you don't have the room or gorilla glue or so many plants that are a little bit taller and longer than everything else. Um, and Knowing that when you're getting your genetics can be a huge thing, because like right now you're dealing with your tent stretching into the lights, and that's if your genetics didn't do that, you wouldn't be dealing with that. So
Right.
knowing that part of your genetics can help a lot. Um, and we've already said it, but even going back to it, if you're sitting here thinking, man, I don't have a space, I don't have this, I don't have that, I don't want to put this money into it, you can literally get a feminized autoflower seed. They can range from a few bucks a seed all the way up to like 10 or 15 bucks if you get the real well-known names. And you can get a bag of water-only soil, and you can put that in a window. I mean, typically you'd want outside, but if you have a south-facing window, they say, from what I found at least, because I went on and looked at this, said, hey man, how much does an autoflower really need to survive? So to survive, you're talking about 2 hours of
Hmm.
light a day, direct. So if that was just a window, you might be pushing it a little bit there. You're really not going to get good yield, but that just gives you a range of really how easy this can be. Just if you want to dabble in it a little bit,
Right.
you find
Yeah.
out it's not for you.
Make a little bonsai plant out of it in your front window. Your neighbors will love it.
See what's happening.
I've seen those too, man. People make those little bonsai cannabis plants. Those things are dope as hell.
They are cool. They're very cool. The roots, they grow the roots around the rocks and stuff, and
Yeah, it's crazy.
those would be a shame to smoke almost.
Yeah, I know, but so pretty and cute. So now the big one, the equipment you're gonna need. And equipment, when I was doing my early research, I spent a little bit more on a tent than I should have, but it's a good tent. I spent an okay amount. I only bought one light the first two grows. I only had one light that didn't do enough coverage, even on that small tent. Didn't have enough coverage for probably about it covered like because I had it in the center of the tent, so it covered the center, the two plants from the middle down got great light, but on the outside coverage, you could see it was dark. And that was my, so I had to buy a smaller little light, the same brand, but just got the smaller one down. Now I have a light canopy that covers the whole entire tent. It's very important to make sure you have good coverage of light with your equipment. Spend the money on a light, good genetics, and a good lighting system. I for a small little grow I have, I wish I would have bought a better lighting system. These are decent, not knocking them. They grow my weed. They grow my medicine. One day I'll get the better equipment for lighting because it is true, because now there's sometimes where I can't control, there's no temperature control on these lights, so I can't really control temperature. I can't control the how vibrant I want the lights. Is just strong veg and flower. That's stronger or less strong veg and flower, and that's it. That's all it is. So I don't have the new stuff, man. Some of the stuff that I read and I look up, you could control temperature, you can control intensity, you could do this if you want to make it that color at all times and this color, and it's phone app. People are just on their phone going, you know. So spend the money on the light. You just, I'll let Big Earl take it from here on equipment, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, no, well, they when you talk about a gardener indoors, right? You go, how efficient are you? How good are you at your craft? If I come in and I say, well, I get 20 pounds with one plant, and I'm growing that plant to be 20 by 20 square foot, and I'm throwing 10,000 watts or something crazy at it, that's not that much. But if I'm coming in and saying, well, I'm getting 1 pound of plant, and I'm throwing a 315-watt light at it, that's a great efficiency. You're throwing 315 watts, and you're getting 452 grams, 450 grams, whatever you get in your pound. Um, so there's literally, like you said, the lighting's a big thing. You can do a direct correlation almost with output. You need other stuff also will determine that for sure, but for sure the lighting. Just to reiterate on that, and the genetics don't have it, you're not going to get it. But other things, so other things to think of. You're going into this. We already talked about how easy it can be. So here's some of the other stuff you need to think about when starting this. So your medium options. Most of our indoor soils, our potting soils, are going to be peat moss based. They're going to have some kind of mycorrhizae in there. That's just going to be something that helps with root growth. Some of them will have foods in there. Make sure you look on the bag. It'll say something like nitrogen 0.037%. It doesn't sound like very much, but when you talk about the whole entity of that pot, wherever you're buying it from, just ask them or look up. How long should this last? So the medium, how long it'll last depends on how big your pot is too. But we'll get into that when we get into that. So you got peat moss, which is most of the potting mixes. You have cocoa. That is a sweet mix because it's very hard to see much stress from overwatering. You can definitely overwater. You can definitely hit optimal watering. But unlike peat moss, if you overwater cocoa or rock wool, you don't kill your or stress your plant so much that you can see negative effects. Rock wool is another option, like I just said. That's glass string basically, and they put it in these little squares. Typically, you can also clone little cubes or little circle things they have, and that is something that a lot of people indoor like because it's a little light square that they can grow in instead of having a bag of cocoa, a pot, having to rehydrate this or that or whatever it is. So a
There's
lot
a
of
hold on, sorry to interrupt. There's a lot of commercial grows use the rock wool.
yes,
Yeah.
at least from what I understand. The ones that I've been a part of don't. I am not a super huge fan of rock wool. It's extremely unforgiving. So if you have a garden with rock wool and you have a power outage, and your room, I mean, many times you're looking at maybe 12 to 24 hours before plants are not just dry but dead. It's not. I have grown with rock wool. I learned with rock wool to do larger gardens, and it would be something where we cleaned a table or we cleaned a reservoir, rehooked it up. Somebody forgot to turn on the timer. We came in the next day, and literally the entire table was dead.
Oh.
So it happened more than once, and so it's very unforgiving. The rocks, a lot of people what people would consider hydro. Hydro just means a non-soil medium. So cocoa is technically hydro, rock wool is hydro. The clay rocks or just regular rocks, however you're growing, would be a hydro also because the water's constantly moving through there. Um, but a lot of people use those at the beginning. That was I'm not really sure why on that. I never grew with that much except for my very first closet grow that it all came in a kit. Wasn't super successful, but that's going to be your main mediums that you would find in a store or that you would find most people running in their setups with cannabis. And a couple other things to add to that would be perlite and vermiculite. They aren't a medium on their own, but they're added to mediums and it changes how they hold water. So if you get a cocoa with perlite, which there's a lot out there, there's some straight cocoa, there's some 50-50, there's 70-30s. I'm sure there's all kinds of different percents. Those are the three that I've seen. Um, those are going to be a little bit more porous. With cocoa, you don't have to worry about it too much holding water differently, but it will be a little bit different. If you get something with peat moss, you need perlite in it. You do not want vermiculite in that. If you do have vermiculite in it, like you're outdoors and it's very warm and long hot days, that you might want vermiculite in that just to hold more moisture. But typically indoors, I dislike telling people to use vermiculite in any kind of medium because it holds water for so long. So those are the mediums. Next, you get into the pots. So you can have cloth pots, which a lot of people call plastic pots. They're basically woven plastic. Some of them are recycled, some aren't. You have the normal plastic pots. People like solo cups for small pots, for small like transplants a lot. You can get bags that are pre-filled, and so you just soak them and go. A lot of gardens went to that. They used to do rock wool because it comes also in a box and it's just this little bag. You open it up, you soak it overnight, like you just flood your trays, and you come in and the whole pot's full of cocoa in the morning, and so you don't have to transplant or do anything. You just put your plug in there and go. Um, and then there's things like net pots that would hold your rocks and your clay rocks, which are just exactly what they sound like, a hard plastic net in a pot shape that you can like drop into a pipe or however you like to run your water. And then you need something to catch the water under your pots. So that can be trays and saucers. So trays can come in like from like 1x4s for larger ones. They come in like 11x14s, I believe it is, for clones. From 1 foot by 4 foot all the way up to 4 foot by 8 foot. They make them where they connect. So you can have like middle pieces and end pieces, and you can have 40, 50, 100-foot tables if you want. So that they don't have, they're very creative with all those. If you're in a saucer or in a tray, I would definitely recommend like a riser, something to go under that, so it's not.
That was my mistake on my first grow. I had the saucer and I had my pot. I didn't have a riser, and that floor got fucking cold.
Yeah.
Gets
Yep.
cold.
Yeah, yeah, you definitely don't want it on the ground.
Those
I've seen a lot of
roots.
people make that mistake, and
Yeah.
they're like, "Well, my drain's right here, and I just do this, and it's not dirty or anything." But you
That floor
just,
gets cold.
yep, it's cold, and then it gets warm too, and too warm of roots is bad too.
Also, too, sometimes in that my little tent, the humidity collects and it collects. The water runs down. Sometimes it might get too high at night, and I didn't turn the humidifier down enough, and water runs down into the tent, and then I didn't have a riser, and there was tons of water underneath that. And it just made moisture come up through the saucer,
Sure.
and my whole bottom was just drenched, and my whole grow, like the whole bottom, like I'm lucky I didn't get root rot. I got it out in time, and got everything all dried, and I realized, I asked Mrs. Weedman, I'm like, why is this happening? She goes, go to the store and buy risers, get something underneath there to keep that. I'm like, oh, I'm a dumbass. Thanks, Mrs. Weedman. So save that grow, because it was my first grow. I didn't know. I was like, what the hell's this? She goes, this is what you need. And then I went up and read more about rise. The floor gets cold, gets warm, and can fuck up your whole entire root system. So
Yeah.
yeah, risers are clutch.
Sure.
Nutrients. You're gonna need to get nutrients. Like I talked about earlier, just remember your soil. Some soils run hot, so you might not need to add nutrients. So really read about nutrients. And I know Big Earl is big on nutrients, and I call them newts sometimes. But you're actually coming up with your own nutrients, right?
Yes. So we have a line that's like final testing. I've run it for a couple years now, so anything you've seen from me has been at least partially run with that. Since we have to order a lot of the stuff, sometimes I'll run out of this or that, and then we have to get it and mix it and do all that. But we've reformulated it quite a few times and have a really nice true two-part liquid.
Now,
So
what? So, is it going to be? You talk about salts all the time. Is it going to be a salts? I don't even know what salts are, so you can explain that also. But is it going to be a salt-based nutrients, or is it liquid powder?
yeah, so it will be salt-based. This one, we're definitely want to move into the more organic side of things. We're going to move there with a medium, I think, though, and we're going to use a medium with a very small salt supplement. So organically, it's very hard sometimes to say you exactly want this. People run different watts, different size pots. You can't say week 2 you got to do this, week 3 you got to do this. If you have a bigger pot, if you have a more vigorous strain, if you're running more wattage, if there's so much stuff that matters. So what we want to do is do an organic base, but provide the salts to fill in any kind of miscalculation, I guess you could say. So yes, it will be salts, and all salts is what people usually call chemical nutrients. It's just salts. It simply it's still mined. It is just more available to the plant. So the organic is typically a powder you see. Some salted nutrients are powders, um, but the organics are like the clamshell powder and the blood meal powder and all that kind of powders, where the salted nutrient powders literally feel like salts.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. And then lighting. We got what's HPS stand for?
High pressure sodium. That's the original lighting. They have the single and the double endeds.
There you go. And then you got ceramic, metal, hylide,
Halides.
halides.
Yeah, the
Okay.
CMHs or the LECs, emitting ceramics. Actually, a really old tech. They used to use those in streetlights. And
That's why my buddy used to say back in the '90s. He used to say, "I gotta go steal some streetlights," and
yep,
they're like $3,000 bulbs, man. Those things don't
those ones
mess
are
around.
very, very strong. Yes, and they
Those things are like $3,000 though too. He said, "I'm going to steal some. I ain't buying them. I ain't got the money for that right now. I got to go change my bulbs out." Yeah, I'm like, "Where's he coming to get those?" I goes, "I'm gonna go get some street."
mine are only about 300 watts and only like $100. But yes, that would definitely be why he was saying that. That's funny.
That's when I first met him, and I first got into traditional market grow. And this was back in the '90s, and he used to say, "Man, you got 3 grand?" I'm like, "No, I don't got 3 grand. That's why I'm working with you." He's like, he's like, "Then I have to go get some street lights." That's what he meant.
That's awesome. Got to go grow.
And now I realize it 30 years later.
You guys number still?
Unfortunately, I haven't seen him in a long time when I left. So had to run. LEDs, right? That's what I use right now. And
Yep.
they range all crazy LEDs, and all different wattages and all. I would say that's the easiest way to do things is an LED. Cheapest too, because there's a lot of good LED lighting out there. I'm not giving anybody a plug, unless you want to, Big Earl. But I'm just saying, as you do your research when it
Yeah.
comes to LEDs. What's a T5?
T5 are the original cloning bulbs. So, and if you guys need any suggestions, just holler at us on like online somewhere, and we'll definitely tell you some companies we like and some different stuff. But T5 are the original fluorescent. So like T8 shot bulbs, T10.
Oh yeah.
So T5 is simply a different spectrum bulb, same kind of twist in like those, come in 2 and 4 foot like those. They simply let off a spectrum that can grow a light, unlike the other ones. So that is what people used to use before LEDs, basically, to grow their small plants. When you see an LED bar, like a LED bar for clones,
Yeah.
it's modeled after a T5 bulb. That's why they're 2 foot,
Oh,
4 foot, and one string.
that's kind of cool.
Yeah, so that's what
And
that's
it,
what they're trying to replace. That's why they've evolved to like that.
gotcha. And then what's the light hangers?
That's what you would hang that with. So they
Gotcha.
just make things. A lot of people I think underestimate being able to get their lights closer and farther away. you can really help control your plants that way.
I've been in some cloning rooms where those I guess it's a T5 because they're light strips. Now that I realize what they are, they're pretty. They're not that high off the clone. They're
Oh yeah,
like no, they're like 5 to 10 inches, maybe I've seen some even closer. But
very close. Yeah,
about yeah, they're pretty close. And those lights aren't burning lights. They're pretty soothing. They don't hurt your eyes. They don't hurt my eyes anyway.
yeah, they're
Uh,
low wattage, and they lose power extremely fast. So
gotcha.
like they say, even with more powerful LEDs, some of them say you can get within 6 inches. So when you got
Hmm,
smaller ones like that, I think mine are within a few inches too.
gotcha. And then of course measuring equipment. You're gonna need a measuring cup, shot glass, measuring spoon, scale, pH pens, EC pens, thermostat, hydrometer, and a CO2. CO2 is optional. I don't use CO2. I'd like to maybe one day start putting a little CO2 extra in my tent. There's ways you can go about without buying a tank too. You can do it the old school fashioned way, little yeast and water and stuff, and kind of with milk jugs and with the old school beer way to get CO2 also. But like I said, my tent's not big enough. But if you want to get some monster nugs, I've seen some people use CO2 like straight up, just like nitrous oxide, like in a car. The straight tanks is like going shooting right into the and buds that are just like monsters, and people have sent me some pics too, so it's crazy. But CO2 works.
Yeah,
It works.
and
So
the plant evolved a long time ago, most of its history, when the CO2 is much higher. So you can pump your CO2. We're usually about 400 outside, 3 to 5. Um, indoors you can pump it up to 1500, and the plants will eat it up. It's the only way you can really get the benefit of a lot of the high powered LEDs. Even
gotcha.
you got to have it. But a lot of that was is like the EC and stuff. That just measures how thick the water is. If you just follow instructions and you water right, you don't really a lot of that just makes things easier. Almost like what we were saying before. If you got all that stuff, you don't have to waste a lot of time figuring out what different things there are because you can just measure it.
Right.
But
What else we need?
so we
There's a
also
lot.
have
I
stuff
forgot how much there was.
for the water. Yeah. And all this stuff is also, maybe not needs, but things that can help. Options.
Yeah.
So for the water, you can think of a reservoir. A lot of people use 5 gallon buckets. A lot of people will use 40-gallon horse troughs. You can go just right down to like the Tractor Supply. 40-gallon horse troughs like 35, $40, I think. Same with a 55-gallon used barrel. Usually you can find for like $30. Sometimes you can find them for like $5 at a recycle type place. Used to have soy sauce or something on them. If you're with something like that, you can always think of a pump, a manifold to distribute the water, or you can do it by hand. It's everybody can do it a little bit different, but that is really the timers you can think of with those.
I have my lights on a timer. I do
Yeah,
have my lights on a timer.
that's like a needed.
Yeah. You
But
need you
even
need a
with
timer for your lights. We forgot to mention that. You do need a
yeah,
timer for your lights.
yes, that's for sure. Some of them come, I know, built in, or come with apps or something that you can have them hook up to. But yes, timers needed. But you that other than that for the water, there's not a ton really there.
I
Some
use I used to make it easy. I use the same water jugs, but I also use a Brita, and I run a Brita. I run my water through a Brita and get all the chlorine out of it and get all the bullshit out of it. I want clean water. So and every grow I change the filter. So after each, I think you get like 40 gallons. I know I probably use a lot more, but after every grow I changed the filter from the Brita. You and I talked about that because I didn't the first grow I didn't do that, and then after we met and we talked, you're like you should really clean your water. I'm like, oh cool. So
and
that's what
all
I use.
that
I use a Brita.
a lot reverse osmosis system. A lot of people will use, and you can also get like just carbon filters and sediment filters hooked up to water lines too. But that's awesome. I didn't realize you were even doing that. That's pretty
Yeah.
cool. And then another thing to think of is how you're going to train your plant. Are you going to use a net, scrog it? Are you going to use bamboo and kind of hold it down? I would definitely recommend getting like some kind of green string, which is just usually a bread, like those bread twist ties in a 300-foot section, that you can unwind. Scissors is definitely something you want.
Good scissors. No,
Yeah,
no, not your normal house scissors. You got to
sharp
buy
scissors.
trimming scissors. Trimming scissors.
Go. They come curved and straight. I like both of them for their own reasons, but they make sure you're cleaning them, make sure you're keeping up on them. You can spread nasty stuff by scissors. If you have a small garden, you probably won't have to worry about that. But if you're ordering clones from somewhere that's a big garden, you might have to worry about that a little bit more than you think. So, stuff for plant training is definitely something to think of. Also, if when you really get into this, something like for atmosphere control would be key. So fans for sure. You want air moving. You don't want plants blown over, but you want air moving. Anything stagnant's bad. Water, air, any of it. Always want it moving. You can have humidifiers. They make plugs that you can plug a humidifier into that read the humidity, so they turn off once it hits a certain humidity. They do the same with CO2. They do the same with fans for temperature. So you can hook up an inline fan to this outlet that reads the temperature. And when it gets to 85 degrees, this inline fan hits on and starts pumping the air out until it gets to 75 degrees or whatever it's set to. So different things like that for atmosphere control are definitely something to think of. The AC, the DQ, stuff like that. Not 100% needed, but it's something. Those are your options if you run into a situation where you need humidity. You say, I need this humidity or I can't clone and I really want to clone. You got some options there.
I like options.
Yes, sir.
You're also going to need a smell control. You're going to need a carbon filter fan. Getting that, there's different ways to hook it up through your tent. There's instructions. So, but you need that carbon filter if you don't want the smell, especially if you're growing in an apartment. That will clean the smell. Everyone's like, how come your house doesn't like really smell like? I'm like, because I got a fan filtration system. You want to come smell? Let's go down by the tent. Let me open the tent up for you. Then they put their face in there like, woo. I'm like, yes. I keep. I don't want my. I trust me. I would like my house reeking like weed. That don't matter to me. But people coming in, you want to kind of keep things on the down DL a little bit sometimes. You got friends that come over, they know you grow. You're taking them right to your tent. Come look at my shit. But get that carbon filter, especially if you're growing it in your in an apartment or a condo or something. You want no one knowing that you're doing it. What's the needle point bipolar ionization? I have no idea what that is. That's why I put it on there to ask you.
That is something newer. I don't have a ton of experience with it. All I know is some larger gardens are using it. It cleans the air and takes it cleans the air, which takes care of smells because it cleans out the things that make things smell. It doesn't need bulbs like ozone. Like an ozone generator, another option to take care of some smell. Those you have to be kind of careful with because you don't want to build up too much. It can be bad for your health, but they do like ozone treatments for people and stuff. Just be very careful with it. I'm not going to tell anybody to use ozone. I do. Um, but the needlepoint bipolar ionization was something I learned of not long ago. I've only heard of it in larger gardens and in homes, hospitals, schools. They have had trials done where schools couldn't get mold to stop growing in certain areas. They install this in their vents, different things. They get it to stop. So I heard that it also helps with smell.
Oh, gotcha.
I don't
Cool.
have any personal experience, but you can get some pretty decently cheap, just little things that you literally your home HVAC system. You pop a little circle into it. You stick this little long, skinny thermometer looking thing in there, and the needle point does its thing.
That's
So
fucking banging right there.
yeah, look into it. It seemed promising. That's why I think it was worth bringing it up here. But the
Yeah.
ozone's really great too. The ozone's something you can just run a little fan, and it takes care of business pretty good.
Sweet. IPM, microscope. I suck at acronyms. What's IPM stand for again?
It's your pest management.
Gotcha.
So
Microscope.
that's the system, like the system put together, because it's not just one product. It's not just one spray or one this or that. Your system that you do to keep bugs out of your garden is your IPM system. It's how you do it.
Gotcha. Yeah, I had one grow where I got those little fucking fungus gnats, and that's because the soil I bought had them in there. So, and it screwed everything up. And I got rid of them by putting those little sticky tapes all over the place. But then I got Damascus earth and put it all over the soil,
Sure.
and that killed all the grubs. So I got rid of them. But they were in the house for fucking quite a minute, man. They suck. Those things suck. So make sure you know where you're getting your soil from. And it wasn't even the soil. Tried something new. I was stupid. I It wasn't a good new. It was those little things you get that the soil surrounding the nets. You put them in water, and then all of a sudden the soil goes up, and it's got a net around it. And then you put the seed in. You put the seed in the germinated seed in there, and then it's. But those I read later on that those are like, if you don't run like extreme hot water through it, you most of the time there's fungus gnat grubs in those because they're cheaply done. I screwed up, so now I don't do that anymore. That was just one grow.
Yeah.
Uh,
They can cover
so
your soil too. I've heard of a lot of people like how they will like a water only soil, how they let them like brew and stuff that they can get it. So
yeah, I just put Damascus earth. Once I get everything ready, I just layer a layer of Damascus earth right on top, right off the beginning. Then I don't have to do it again because most of the time it takes care of all. If there's any grubs in there, they're done. You get through that. That's just if you don't know what Damascus earth is, all it is crushed up seashells.
yeah,
It's harmless. Your dog can eat it. You can eat it. It's actually good for you. Uh, it doesn't harm you at all. It doesn't harm the environment. You can kill bugs with it in a natural way. It's great. Like if you have ant piles in your back and you want to get rid of them, you throw a little bit of that on there. It goes in there underneath their skin. They take it back to the nest, and everyone gets it. It's very harmless to everything. So except for what the bugs you're trying to kill. So
yeah, I love diatomaceous earth is very underutilized. You can use it in a lot of different ways.
yeah, they should be using that for farms instead of using friggin' if you want to go organic and kill bugs, just spray that over farms, not those stupid ass chemicals. That's for another show. Cleaning. You got a clean space is clutch. You need to keep your grow space clean. Mold spore, everything. You just gotta before every grow and after every grow, I scrub my tent down thoroughly. I mean, I scrub it. Scrub, scrub, scrub. I clean the fan. I clean the lights. I scrub the shit out of my tent because you don't know what happened that last grow or something got in there, and you want to do it before you grow and then after I do my drying in the tent. I take it out. I take it all out and then I scrub it down. And I let it dry for a couple days and let it air out. And then I just give it a nice little spray with some Lysol and then a wipe down again, just in case. And then I can start my next grow. Cleanliness is next to godliness, as they say. You want to keep your area clean. You don't want any. So you're gonna need some alcohol, H2O2 soap, some bristle brushes, rags, your sink, and gloves. So clean.
Keep it clean.
Keep it clean, yo.
So one thing to talk about too is what are you going to do at harvest? Are you going to flip it in the tent you're growing in the area you're growing in? Are you going to have another area? They've found the cooler you can keep it, the better. You want it dark, so think about what's best for that for you. A lot of people will just flip it upside down, hang it right where they grow. It adds 2 weeks on before you can do anything, but sometimes it's your only option. Um, they make different fans. You want some air movement still during your dry for sure after you harvest. So make sure to get. They make like little 6-inch fans for tents. I love them. I pop them everywhere. I have usually 3 or 4 in my little 2x4s when I do my breeding projects. But when you're drying after harvest, the atmosphere is 100% key. If you're getting your stuff dry in 3 days, 4 days, even a week, too fast. You're burning stuff up. You're making it harsher than it needs to be. Give it good 2 weeks. I like mine at about 60 to 65% humidity. Usually I'll try to start at 65 and I'll try to drop that down. But if you have an area you can do that, you'll be great with harvest. A tent works really well too. Then you have to think about trimming after that, right? They make trim trays that have little screens in the bottom, so it's like a teeth catcher in your grinder. Very cool. They make trim bags where you have to be careful with the humidity on your plant. You just shake your plant up in this bag and it trims them pretty good for you. They make trim machines where you just got to press a button and it goes. Also very humidity specific, so you need to make sure you're reading on how that machine wants its humidity on the bud. Those are going to be a little bit more expensive, but they make some pretty decent priced ones. You need to think about where you're going to store your trim, where you're going to store your flour. You're going to use 5-gallon buckets with gamma lock lids, which just spin on. Or you're going to use big totes. You can use the big turkey bags for the totes. How are you going to do all that? People do a lot of different stuff, there. And then again, you want to remember you need a place to trim and smell control. When you're trimming, it's going to be stinky. That is going to be the stinkiest part, drying it, and when it's harvesting, it's pretty stinky.
I love the stinky part.
Yeah, if you're in an apartment and you're worried about that smell, trim around your carbon filter. Figure something out there because it will smell. So if you've ever trimmed and gone to eat somewhere afterwards, you're very aware that you smell like weed because everybody is looking at you. So
I love it. I love going and smelling like weed. Oh shit. Uh, storing. When you do your curing part and you store it, you're gonna need mason jars or Big Earl. You had those buckets when I was over your place. Those were pretty dope.
yeah,
You're gonna need some totes, humidity packs, some fresh stems and leaves, of course. But the humidity packs are clutch. You can also do mylar bags if you want to get away from the glass jars. Everyone's talking about because you don't have to put humidity packs in those mylar bags. They're like control. You can buy temperature control, humidity controlled mylar bags now. Fucking, they're dope, and they're pretty cheap. You could buy 1 pound. You could buy. There, people are using them more and more. I might go to them eventually on this next grow. I haven't decided yet. I might switch over to mylar bags and do my storing in. But I kind of like looking at it though. My weed though. The mylar bags, most of them are black or colored because you don't want light penetration in there at all. So for a different show. So storing, you're gonna need to make sure you store your weed. No plastic bags. They're not stored in big trash bags. If I find out you're doing that, we're gonna have a nice talking to. I don't
gross.
want to smoke that grossness.
Turkey bags, a lot of people put on that level too, which are
Yeah.
traditionally people use turkey bags a lot, but
Yeah.
you know,
And if you're gonna do, yeah, I mean, just no plastic bags and all that stuff, man. You got the stuff out there you can use. Cloning, we're gonna do some shows on cloning, but if you're gonna get into some cloning, you're gonna need a gel, you're gonna need a tray, cubes, cloning machine, disc. You're gonna need a razor to cut it at a 45-degree angle, marker seeds. I saw Umami use something when he was doing his cloning. And it wasn't alcohol. He wasn't cleaning his scissors with alcohol or his razor with alcohol. He was cleaning with this corn something he called, and I wish I would have wrote it down. It was a while ago. I don't know if you saw his little. It was he used some kind of corn. It
huh,
wasn't corn oil. It was something made out of corn. And he goes, "That's why you get good clones from me." I'm like, "Whoa, okay, that's kind of cool." So, and then some miscellaneous stuff. If you want to give a lullaby, sing a lullaby to your plants, have a Bluetooth speaker in there, some good duct tape. You want to have under around door for the drafts and stuff like that, doormats maybe, and keeping your safe space and your temperature perfect. Read books. Read books, right? Zip ties. What's the green light? I always forget what the green light is.
green lights are nice because it allows you to work in your area at night. Your plants don't wake up to a green light. You know, if you think about your plants, the reason they need that light and they don't need the light is to sleep. And so if you think about us and somebody flicks the light on in the middle of the night, we're like, we wake up. That's how they are. But the green light they do not recognize. So
That's awesome. I
yes,
remember that. When I came to your spot, you had the green light on when we went in the room. It was in the corner somewhere, a couple of them around the corners, and that was it. We didn't disturb. Because I'm like, can I take a picture? You're like, and I'm like, I'm not going to use the flash because I don't want to wake your babies. I remember saying that. We laughed. And so I got some beautiful pictures of that green light. Made it really, really cool. It gives you the frostiness, man. It was beautiful looking. So with those pictures I took a while back ago. So yeah, I understand the green light now. So we had we said we were going to answer some questions from listeners. We're only going to answer one on this show, and then we'll save the next one for the next. It's the same listener actually DM'd Big Earl, so we're going to talk about the one was how to tell if seed banks or certain breeders are worth it. So Big Earl, he sent you the question, man. Let's what's Joe, right? From
yeah,
Joe.
no, yeah, dude.
Sweet.
Thanks for reaching out, man. We love all the questions, and we
Hell
love
yeah, Joe. Thank you, brother.
yeah, we'll get to more of yours, I promise. So he asked how to tell, what seed bank to use, what breeders. It's particularly, I think, Instagram is a little confusing for a lot of people, but that's really where the huge part of the community is, especially when it comes to different genetics. I know people are reaching out on like Discord and some of those other platforms, but as far as I'm concerned, as far as I know, Instagram really holds a huge part of that. So let's say we're talking about Instagram in general. First thing I would do is make sure to follow them, make sure it's their real account. If they have other social medias, if they have other a website, a lot of these big guys definitely have a website. Most of them you can go to their website and order directly from them now. That is definitely a big thing. There are a ton of scammers. So just get on there, make sure they have the followers. If you're talking to, you brought up Umami earlier, or you're talking about some of these other big seed companies, they're not going to have 300 followers. Yeah, their stuff is going to say deleted at 19,000 and stuff like that, and a lot of them do. Just make sure, sometimes I do get deleted. Just make sure you're following, make sure they're real, make sure you're not going to get scammed there.
Always
If
come.
you have,
You can always go to Big Earl too, and he'll lead you the right direction.
absolutely. I always tell people, it's more about the breeder than the genetics really. So it's getting to know that person um, is a big part of it. And when you find the good breeders, they're going to back you up. So they're going to get you the good seeds. If you have a problem with them, they're probably going to help you out. As long as you're not an asshole and saying all these suck, da da da, like they're probably going to get you going. So that would be my best tip there is to just follow them. Don't, I know you want seeds now. Don't go fast. Follow them for a little bit. See how they react to things. See everything about them.
A lot of
And
the good breeders post a lot,
yes,
and they post a lot of their grows, so you can actually see what you're getting, what you're buying, and if they're trustworthy or not. And it's their breed, so you're gonna see what it should truly come out to and with and how, because it's their breed and they want to make sure it looks the best. And a lot of the guys and gals and breeders out there, they post videos too. If someone's got a fake account, they ain't posting the video. They're just posting pictures. So look for their stories too. If they're posting a lot of stories, if they have certain stories in their bio, like, hey, this is all of our hybrid strains, this is all of our sativas, and this, you'll know. Trust me, it's not, if it's a fake. Most of them don't have stories at all. They're just posting. They're just taking random pictures off of other people's grows and posting them and just putting like, oh, this is this. You can always catch a schemer or scammer too, by asking them certain questions about his genetics, and if they might go because you know your shit. So, you know,
breeders won't reach out to you. You're never going to get a breeder that's going to be like, "Hey, dude, I just got this down. You want some seeds?" So, if somebody does that, be cautious. If somebody's comments aren't on, be cautious. There's no reason for somebody to turn their comments off unless they don't like what people are saying. And in that instance, 9 times out of 10, you're probably looking at people being like, "Scammer, don't buy from this guy. Scam, scam, scam."
and some of the big breeders too, they use seed banks themselves. I remember I bought one round of umami, and I'll mention him. I like him. He's been on the show, so much respect to him and his what he does. He uses a seed bank. You can't just go to him and buy his seeds. He uses a real legit seed bank. Should we give him use the name? It's Neptune Seed Bank. So that's what I do to go buy his when I want his seed. So and there's reputable breeders on that seed bank, and there's multiple breeders on that seed bank, and they answer questions. They use they very strict to buy the seeds. You have to go through a process, so you're not getting scammed and you're not getting your identity stolen. It's a pretty good process, so you're being safe and they're being safe, which is good. So I threw him a shout out there. I mean, I've told people to go there too. And like I said, if you want to buy from a good breeder, know who you're buying from, at all times. Ask questions, ask us, especially ask Big Earl. He actually knows a lot of the breeders too, which helps.
Sure, yeah.
So that's
Neptune's
good.
great, man. They were before Neptune. I had to order overseas for most of my seeds, and I've ordered from a lot of banks that are really great in the U.S. now. But before Neptune Seed Bank, you usually had to order overseas, and you usually couldn't get it if you wanted it guaranteed. It couldn't come in the breeder's pack, so it would come in like just a little plastic baggie with the label cut out of it, and that was from Attitude, and I'm sure most of the banks over there that had to ship to America because they get taken out of customs. So I like Neptune too. I would say anybody on there is probably pretty solid, and that goes for a lot of the banks. If it's a good bank, they're not going to be messing with anybody, that's subpar kind of thing. They're going to make sure they have good they have good breeders.
Yo, Joe, hopefully that helps you. We'll get to your other question in another show. I like the question a lot. We'll talk about it on another episode. We can do one per show, so it's a little easier. We're running real long. We had a lot to talk about on this one. So the last part is the pricing, the average price. We're just going to throw some prices out there, just some average pricing, not go through the whole thing. We'll talk more about that on some more episodes, but just my price cost me 1200, 12 hundo. And I made that back up and given a plenty of weed out. I probably could have made a lot of money too if I wanted to, selling my own home grow because people liked it. But I had fun growing it. I enjoy it. It's my zen. but $1,200 was my number. Probably could have saved some money here and spent some more money there and whatever. But like I said, education is key. So, Big Earl, what do you think, man? What's give us three pricing,
Yeah,
small, medium, large, kind of like in your home grow
sure.
kind of thing.
So today I went down to the shop and I said, well, what would I get some of this stuff at? So we'll start with a tent. We'll just do some of the bigger stuff, and we'll throw up a more complete list somewhere, where we'll have prices for a lot more than just this. But let's say you want a 2x4 tent, pretty decent price right there is going to be around $275. Those are going to be heavy to ship, so if you do shipping, expect to pay a lot. If you're at a shop and they try to charge you way more than that, see if they have different kinds, see what you can do there. A lot of the industry, the reason we're even going through this is because a lot of the industry has a 100% markup. When you go to a lot of this stuff, if it's $50 MSRP, the shop buys it for 25. So that's just how the industry traditionally is. The good shops will automatically discount you. They're not going to charge you that much. They're going to charge you like 15, 20% over what they're buying, and that's what you're going to pay. But there aren't all good shops. So if somebody's selling $500 for a 2x4 tent, just price it out a little bit. If you want to go up from there, like a 4x4 tent, like 335 ish, the 4x8, you're talking about $500. So that should give you a little roundabout. If you want to go to 10x10, you probably up a couple $100 more than that, and so on. When you're talking about LEDs, so a big LED that's going to cover a 4x4 area really well, American built, you're talking probably about $1,000. If you go through and you find a like something that comes out of China, Alibaba type of thing, you can get it way cheaper than that. And some of those are really nice. I've had really good, personally, had really good success with those. I've had really good success with LEDs from America. It's all about if the warranty's worth it for you. So 4x4 area filling, you're talking about $1,000 for a 5-year warranty, kind of light in America. Probably about $500 for a 1-year warranty, Chinese made, or they're all Chinese made, but Chinese shipped. Something smaller, like a 400 wattish light, you're talking $500 to $600, American made, 5-year warranty, that kind of thing. You're probably talking about half of that, or a little bit under that even. If you go down with some shipping out off of Alibaba or something. When you go to pots, if you're running a 1 gallon pot, you shouldn't be paying much more than like 50 cents for that. There are a lot of things, a lot of people want to, oh, this is great because of that, this is great because of this. A regular pot, you're talking about 50 cents. You want 3 gallons, maybe a buck. You shouldn't you shouldn't be paying much more than that. If it's some kind of crazy special pot, then that's what it is. But that's about what I pay for a 5 gallon. Not much more than a buck, maybe a buck 20ish tops. But that should if you got to get 6 or 7 of those, you're not having to do too much there. The medium to fill that up, about $20 for it's a 2 cubic foot bag of cocoa. That's going to do about 14 gallons. So if you're doing 3 5 gallons, you're going to be pretty close. 1 cubic foot, you're talking $20 there. If you're doing way more than that, you might need a couple bags of cocoa. So if you need 10 pots, you might be talking about $60, $80 just on cocoa. So just make sure you know that's how much that costs. That's pretty comparable to other mediums. The difference is cocoa, you're going to have to typically water every food every time. And the other mediums, you will usually have food in them. Sometimes they don't. But that'll be the big difference there. If you want to go with trays, because that's something different, a lot of people don't buy. Saucers and risers can be all over the board on price. But trays, a 1x4 tray, so these are thick trays, they're real nice. They're made so you can drill drains into them, stuff like that. So 1x4 tray is about $50. That seems very expensive. But that's about what the market is on them. So just expect if you want something like that, a little part of your tent or something, you should pay about $50. Go up to a 2x4, you're talking about $60, so not much more. And then you can go up to like a 4x4. They also make those. You're talking about almost $75. When you get to those bigger ones, shipping has to be pallet usually. So even if you're like, oh, I'm just gonna pay the shipping, you're gonna pay a lot if you're just gonna ship one 4x4 tray. They also do 4x8 trays, which I know are like in the 150th range, and they make all kinds of ones in between there. But those are the main ones. And then if you're talking about water pump, because a lot of people don't have a grasp on a lot of the water pumps. So if you have something smaller, you're not going to be paying more than $20 for a water pump. They make way nicer and badass smaller ones out there. The normal little $20 water pump that's moving 250 gallons per hour. If you're just going from a little 5 gallon bucket over, you're fine with that. Or if you're just rotating some water around, if you're going up to like a 50 gallon bucket and you're taking it across a room, or if you have to go up, you probably want to go up to at least like an 800 gallon per hour. And those are like $50. So still not super expensive. Um, and then again, I think we talked about already the barrels to hold the water, a 55 gallon barrel or a 40 gallon trough, about $40 probably, maybe $30 down to 30. So all in all, I think your setup you got pretty good with, and I think that's going to be a pretty average, the 1,000 to 1,500 for a nice 2x4 with really everything you need. And you not having to be like, I need the absolute cheapest of everything. You might be able to get a little cheaper than that, and you can go way over that.
And yeah, I think T or Tech, I think he said he spent like $750, but he went cheap on the tent, went really good on the light. He listened to me on light. He bought a really good light system. Everything else, like I said, he bought mediocre stuff. And he's gonna get some weed.
Yeah.
So it just, you can price check. You can always look stuff up. So the the thing is, just start doing it. Then you'll figure it out as you go along.
It's fun. Have fun with it. Everybody, next grow, everybody wants to do something different. So at least I do. Every
Yeah.
time. So have some fun.
Yeah. Yo, this was a
With it.
big episode. This was a long one, Big Earl. It was a good one though. We covered some material on this one for everybody. So we're gonna keep it to the hour moving forward, but we wanted to make sure that you got the knowledge that was given upon me, and Big Earl learned too his knowledge, and we wanted to make sure your setup and your grow area was the right start. There's going to be a lot more questions. You're probably going to shoot us a lot of DMs and we'll answer them. We'll either answer them on a DM. If there's a real good one on there, though, we'll throw it on the show. So send us some questions that you want to hear about. We'll do one per show. Thanks, Joe. Tell us where you're from too. If you're from somewhere in the world, tell us where you're from. Joe from wherever. Let us know. We throw you a shout out, man. We appreciate you guys giving us feedback and wanting to hear from us, man. We love it. We want to thank everybody out there in the world. Big Earl, got some fat nugs up behind you. We got anything else to say before we end this bad boy?
Don't forget, you guys, if you want some fire ass flowers like that, you gotta add more cow mag.
Don't forget your cow mag, everybody. We love you out there, out in the world. Have a great night. Smoke a big fat doink for us all while you're listening to this show. Have a great one, everyone. Peace.